Welcome to Behind the Narrative from H Advisors. In this podcast, we'll be speaking to the heroes of the business world who make things happen. I'm Katharine Spence, communications professional.
And I'm Ian King, business writer and broadcaster. We're delving behind the narrative of a company, meeting the experts, problem solvers and creative minds who really run the show.
So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and join us for stories and insights you won't hear anywhere else. We're really pleased to have Stu Jackson as our guest on Behind the Narrative, who has, I think, one of the most, if not the most fascinating jobs in comms, heading up, as he does, Amazon for all of the communications outside of the US. Before that, he was at Nissan during the Brexit years and also had a career at EE. So we're really pleased to have him here today.
Stu, welcome. Thanks for joining us. The role that you're in now is actually relatively new. You've got about 200 odd people, I think, reporting to you. But just explain why Amazon rang the changes on its comms operations in the way that it did.
Yeah, well, we have, obviously we're a big company and there's a lot of people who are very interested in us as a company. In fact, it's one of the privileges of working for Amazon is that people take a great interest in what we're doing and what we're doing next. But we really wanted to make sure that we had an international comms organization that was able to serve the international business. Because obviously we were a US-based company initially, but have grown quite considerably over the last few decades. And so now we wanted a united comms team, really, that was looking at each of the different countries that we operate in outside of the US. So I run a team of about 150 people across 28 countries, very, very professional comms organization and individuals who are looking after the reputation of Amazon in the countries where we operate.
That's a lot of countries. You must spend an awful lot of time on the road.
Yes, it is quite a busy job. I've looking back at the countries I've visited this year. It's across all the different continents. The US, obviously, quite regularly as well. But anything from Dubai to Australia to Japan, heading out to Brazil and Mexico and Canada later in the year too. But travel is one of the joys of the job, and getting to meet the teams who are out there and helping them educate me really on how Amazon is perceived and what we really need to be doing in those countries, and then being able to support them is part of the gig.
Does it vary from country to country then, the perception?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Amazon is in different states in terms of its business evolution in different countries. Obviously, we're sitting here today in the UK, and we're a very well-known company in the UK. But if you take somewhere like Brazil and Mexico, we're a challenger brand, much more in those countries than you would be perceived to be in the UK at the moment. So it's different for different countries. But we've been in the UK now for 25 years. In Germany for 25 years, in France for 25 years, and then likes of Italy and Spain for 15, Brazil and Mexico coming onto that as well. So yeah, it's different for the different geographies that we operate in. So different challenges for the comms teams.
I want to talk a little bit about your role at Amazon and your leadership style, Stu. We'll come on to more broader questions on Amazon as well,
Sure.
If we may. But just thinking about what you were saying, what Ian's question around travel, 28 countries, it seems mind-boggling. And I think for those listeners who run big teams, who have multi-geography jobs, how do you instill and lead a culture for so many different people, so many different countries? What's your skill in that?
I think firstly you need brilliant people, right? And that's all businesses really are. And that's what comms teams are. It's a bunch of people, and you hope that you're going to get great people who are going to be working for you. So I'm blessed with having a collection of experts in each of those countries who, are there to protect and promote Amazon in the right way. But I think Amazon just generally has a great hiring policy. And it's all based back on the thing that I think shapes our culture the most, which are these things called leadership principles. So there are 16 leadership principles, anything from earn trust to be customer obsessed to dive deep. And
those are Amazon specific,
they're Amazon specific leadership principles. And I guess the best way of explaining them is they're a bit like a company's values or the behaviors that you expect of people within your company. But unlike other companies that I've worked at, where those values are kind of created by the board, then put on a poster stuck in the kitchen and everyone ignores them when they're making the cup of tea, at Amazon, they really are ingrained into our culture. And I think that's one of the kind of secret sauce elements of our success as a company. It's the leadership principles that we look at every single day and work to every single day. And you'll hear them in meetings every single day. People will hold each other to account. So you know exactly what the expectations are, and there's that one culture wherever you work in the world defined by these 16 leadership principles. And in fact, I think one of the interesting things about those is when we're hiring people, we hire looking at those leadership principles, making sure that the people who are coming in are going to fit in well. So when you do an interview at Amazon, you get asked questions about your experience and your career so far, but they're all based around those leadership principles. So you may be asked to tell me about a time when you found that someone you were working with wasn't customer obsessed. What did you do? And so in that sense, the kind of understanding of the leadership principles starts even before you join the company. And through that interview process, if you get into the job that you've gone for, you already know those leadership principles, and then we'll hear them every day. So I think that's one of the kind of the key elements of our culture that's very different to anywhere else that I've worked at before.
And you were saying you've been there now a few years. This is a new role you've got in terms of more responsibility, but has it changed within those few years? I'm interested in your point about the fact that it's a challenger brand in some other countries.
Yeah.
We think of it as just being everywhere, omnipotent Amazon. People are ordering things all the time. They're delivered in the brown paper packages. It's so much part of our daily lives. It's hard to think of those countries where perhaps you have a provider that is the incumbent. Do you think that the secret of its growth is partly to do with these leadership principles you were talking about?
Yeah, I think it is, because then there's a common language right across the world. So if I'm speaking to anyone, if I'm speaking to someone from my team in Australia or my team in Dubai, or I'm speaking to the folks in the States, we're all talking about the same expectations and behaviours that we all work to. And I think that's a very important part. And again, it feels different to the companies that I've worked at previously, where there have been almost distinct tribes sometimes in different regions and geographies, which then actually causes friction rather than all of you pointing in the same direction and moving towards the same goal.
How do you think Amazon is perceived right now? I mean, if I had to sort of say how a lot of the UK media, for example, look at the company, I'd say it's respected rather than loved. It's not like Marks and Spencer or John Lewis partnership that everyone adores.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I mean, if you were talking about the media feeling like that.
Yeah, I think so.
If you speak to your friends and family, certainly when I speak to my mum, she's so proud that I work for Amazon because she thinks it's a quite magical company, and the fact that she can get things to her door the next day without having to go down the shops, she finds that quite unbelievable. And when I speak to my friends and family, they too are kind of like interested in the magic behind Amazon. Well, the reality is it's not magic. There's a lot of technology behind some of the things we do, but it's about a bunch of people, in the UK's case, 75,000 people, all working to deliver that one item to that person's door. So I actually find there's a lot of love for Amazon, certainly in what we do as a service and a product. And you saw that during COVID as well, actually. We were one of the companies that were continuing to deliver at a time when people weren't able to step out of their houses. And that appreciation, I think, for what Amazon could do was very much there. And I think that still exists today. Certainly when we look at our data and our research, yes, there's always a job to be done to make sure that our reputation is out there as a positive force for good in the countries where we operate. But generally, people are very fond of Amazon, appreciative of what we do, and continue to engage with the company.
What about the rest of the retail sector? I mean, obviously, this is something that comes up time and time again. Amazon's laid waste to the high street. I remember Phil Clark, one of the old Tesco CEOs. I remember he used to literally refer to Amazon as the evil empire.
Right, crikey. No, I just don't.
Before your time, obviously.
Of course, before my time in. But I just don't see it in the numbers. I mean, 70% of retail is still done on the high street. So the high street is still very much booming. Here's a lot of horror stories. And I think for some retailers who haven't adopted an e-commerce strategy, they're probably finding it more difficult than those that have. But it's not an either or. It's not e-commerce versus physical retail. I think everyone needs a bit of both. And those retailers that do adopt both, I think, are finding continued success. And it's the same for our sellers. When you think about the sellers who sell on Amazon, 60% of everything that's sold on Amazon is sold by an independent seller, not through the Amazon, through Amazon stock. So 100,000 small businesses in the UK now sell on Amazon. And they don't just sell to the people on a high street. They don't even just sell to the people in the UK. They're given the opportunity to sell to the world in a way that physical retail, if they were a physical retailer only, they couldn't do. So we give kind of sellers across the world that opportunity to sell globally.
Do you think it has a different image in terms of what is sold on Amazon here, than in the US? So in terms of your own role, communicating with your US colleagues on that, I just get the impression that in the US, Amazon is far more a retailer, to Ian's point, around clothing and perhaps fresh goods, whereas here it's not so much. Are you aware of those differences? Is there a goal in what Amazon should be in the next few years?
I think slightly. I mean, you can see that we're looking at grocery as a new opportunity for the business, but still, the traditional players are the big ones. You talked about our man from Tesco. I think they're doing fine right now in terms of, for want of a better word, dominance of that sector. We're definitely a challenger brand in that world. And again, the vast majority of grocery goods are sold physically rather than in a physical store rather than through an e-commerce site.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've owned Whole Foods for quite a while now. I mean, what is the aim there? What's the strategy? I mean, because correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand it, it's never been particularly profitable.
Well, the Whole Foods, I think Whole Foods is one of the first big acquisitions we made in that grocery sector. I was over in the States just a few weeks ago, and Whole Foods continues to be a very much loved brand. So I think there's kind of like an understanding that that's now part of the Amazon family. But right now, we kind of continue to encourage the whole food brands to be something that customers love and engage with.
But what's the ultimate game here? Is it to become bigger over time? I mean, it feels like
in grocery. Yeah. Certainly, that's an industry that we're looking at the moment. I mean, there's a big opportunity there for us and for many other players, clearly. And when you think about deliveries to the home and how that's changed since COVID, there's clearly an appetite. And again, you see that with the traditional retailers, the Sainsbury's, the Tesco's, the Waitroses, who actually were very much at the forefront of home delivery and are now kind of continuing that. But that's certainly an opportunity for us. But we're still relatively small in that industry. There's a lot of way to go. I think a lot of people think that Amazon has everything completely tied up and knows exactly where we're heading and what we're doing. We still have our challenges as a business, and we're just trying to make sure that the experience that we give customers is the right experience, and that they understand that what they're getting from Amazon is a promise delivered, whether that's for a lettuce, toilet roll, a lawnmower, whatever the people want. So yeah, we're looking at making sure that we can deliver what our customers are asking us to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really long game, isn't it? Because Ocado's been going 25 years and it's yet to achieve a penny profit.
Yeah, I think grocery is a challenging sector for sure.
I have to ask about Bond. Can I change the subject from Whole Foods to Bond, please? Who's the next James Bond?
I think we're sitting opposite him, Mr. King.
Exactly. So you bought the franchise. I mean, tell me about the business rationale behind that. I mean, it's still in Amazon to all our points, really. So Amazon is still very much in an acquiring mode. If you research what you're doing, you're always doing some buying along on the side, if you like. But this is a big one.
Well, the MGM acquisition, which happened, must have been 3, maybe 4 years ago. I mean, what an exciting day that was for us all at Amazon. It was fantastic to be involved in that and see that happen. And as part of that, the Bond franchise, the Bond rights came with it. And
you do have a say in the casting, I believe. Is that right?
Me personally?
Yes, you, obviously, personally.
Absolutely.
With your role. You've got to communicate it, so therefore you've got to be involved.
It's going to be an exciting day when we communicate who's the next Bond, right? That's going to be a good day at Amazon Towers. But some really exciting things have happened already this year. We've announced our kind of executive producing partners. We've announced Denis Villeneuve as the new director, which is super cool. I was so happy to see that he had signed up for that. And now the next thing is that everyone's asking is who's going to play Bond, but also kind of where's it going to be filmed, who's going to be the supporting cast, when's it set. I'm a huge James Bond fan, so feel very lucky to be kind of at the company I'm at right now and look forward to seeing who is the next Bond.
And what's the strategic rationale, business-wise, for investing in MGM?
Well, it's making sure that we provide, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about making sure we provide our customers with what they want. So giving them a really great kind of content and entertainment offering is a key part of our Prime service. So when you sign up for Prime, you don't just get the fast deliveries for free, you also get the entertainment elements of that. So that includes great films, great content like Clarkson's Farm, and that just comes as part of your package. So that's really about being competitive and making sure that we're offering our customers what they can get elsewhere, but knowing they can get a really good offer with us too, and they get their free delivery and their entertainment service and.
So that's a good day for, as you say, Amazon Towers. What for you, Stu, is not such a good day? What are the things that are challenges for you in your role? You've talked a lot about the positives of the leadership culture, of some of the areas you're going into, and how proud you are of the work that you've done in building that. But you have an external comms function as well, and there must be some difficult days.
Absolutely. There are many challenges. Look, we've got 1.5 million employees across the world. We've got 500,000 of them outside of the US. We've got many millions of customers that we serve every day. We've got a logistics operation which is extremely broad, not just across the UK, but across the world. As with any company, things can go wrong or things can be challenging. The key thing for me, and one of the communications specific cultures that we've built, is a no surprises culture. So making sure that we are communicating with each other as a communications function and with the business and back and forth to make sure that we're not surprised by something that happens or goes wrong. And you can imagine after 30 years in business, we've seen many different things. So we have ways of managing the certain things that you expect could go wrong in that logistics operation or within that employee base or with our customers. So it's rare that we have something that is totally new and a surprise. However, in the current world that we live in, where things are kind of sometimes a bit weird, sometimes quite volatile, there are every day is a challenge. And looking across those 28 countries, there's always an issue somewhere that we're having to deal with and clean up. So it's certainly I would say it's the most challenging job I've had in my career, but the most fulfilling.
How much of your time has been taken up with the various pushes in various countries to unionise the business?
I mean, that's actually where I started my career at Amazon. So I started as the director of operations communications in Europe. So that means looking after the logistics side of the business, so the warehousing and the transportation, the bit of the business that gets you your stuff every day. And obviously that's been a kind of a news story narrative in this country and a few others over the last few years. From our perspective, it's our employees' choice whether they'd like to join a union or not. I think what you're finding certainly in countries like the UK where the employers are deciding not to is that, we do offer a very positive employee experience for our employees. So they're actually feeling right now that they're happy with their jobs and the opportunities that we offer them. But that's kind of one of those areas that I've been dealing with for 6 or 7 years now. But I wouldn't say it's taking up a significant amount of my time right now. Comes in pockets. And as I say, the employees right now are choosing actually to not kind of sign up in that way.
How much of a headache are obviously the UK government's committed to a new wave of labour rights, employee rights. Is that going to be a bit of a headwind for you in this country?
I don't think so. I mean, like we've gone through many different administrations in many different countries with many different manifesto pledges and ideas, and we just work with the incumbent governments as we need to kind of work through those things. So not seeing that as a major issue right now. And again, I think it's incumbent on us as an employer to make sure that the experience we deliver our employees means that they are happy, that they do get the opportunities they need, that they are paid well, they are treated well. And that's what we're hearing back from our employees in general right now.
talking of politics a little bit, I just want to step back to your previous career before you got to Amazon, because you were at Nissan during the Brexit years.
Yes.
And which became a bit of a poster child.
That was another memorable day.
Yes. I don't know if that was in your preparing for no surprises box. I don't know.
I'll tell you what happened on that day. That was funny. Not that funny, but I was working with the European chairman, a guy called Paul Wilcox, and he was running Nissan Europe, and it was a few weeks before the referendum vote, and our expectation, as I think many people's expectation, certainly in the weeks was that we were likely to remain, and therefore the likelihood of us leaving felt relatively small, more fool us. But I did sit with him and say, look, just in case something goes awry and it doesn't go the way that we're expecting, let's prepare the communications plan and the messaging if that's the case. And we were kind of half laughing with each other that, thank God we're not going to have to use this one, kind of thing. And then on the day, obviously you have to put that communications plan into place, and that's quite a unexpected moment. But the ramifications for Nissan at the time, we were very worried as a European business, because I guess the irony of the Brexit vote was a lot of people in Sunderland, where we had our biggest European plant, they'd actually voted to leave the EU, and then that put that plant we were concerned it would put the plant at a less competitive advantage than the other plants that Nissan and the Nissan-Renault alliance had at that time, not just across Europe, but across the world. So we were quite concerned if that plant wasn't able to remain competitive, you could see Qashqais getting made elsewhere, in Brazil or in Russia, or even in the US. So there was a concern at that moment in time. I think actually the company has done relatively well in terms of riding out that storm, and seems to be in a good place now under new leadership.
Did you ever walk the shop floor at that time and sort of ask people which way they voted? Was there any sort of internal post-mortem? Did the company speak to its employees?
We certainly spoke to our employees, but we didn't ask them which way they voted, because I think that's very much people's personal right and decision. And while my personal opinion is we'd be better, and this is my opinion, not any company I've worked for, certainly not necessarily the one that I'm here now, but speaking on behalf of myself, I think we'd be better off in Europe. But if people think differently, that's absolutely the democratic right to have their voice heard and make those decisions. So we didn't ask our employees which way they'd voted, but we did make sure they understood that, like, we may be going through a few tricky moments now because of this nationwide decision.
So what made you go from Nissan to Amazon then? Were you headhunted, or how did it go?
Yeah, I got a call from. In fact, it's interesting. When I was working for Nissan, I was living in Paris, away from my family. So my family was staying in London, and I was commuting each kind of like Friday evening and Sunday night to Paris, and I did that for 3 years. And I was ready to come back to London. And this is 2018, and there weren't many jobs in London at that time because of Brexit. Like, the market, if you remember, was quite kind of it's stagnant, really. But I was ready to come back to London, and talking to Nissan about that. Got a call from a headhunter, and they said, "Hey, we'd love you to come and work for Amazon." I'm saying, "That sounds perfect.
Wow.
Where's the office?" And they said, "Luxembourg." I went, "Any chance of London?" And they were like, "No, not right now." So the job was in Luxembourg, and that was where. And Luxembourg's a lovely, lovely country, by the way. And I had another 2 years living away from the family in Luxembourg, and then eventually moved back to London with Amazon in 2020, just before the pandemic, actually. But it was initially a kind of thought of like, let's get back to London, be with the family again. It was more of a life choice than a professional choice initially. But then the Amazon opportunity came along, and I thought, I can't turn that one down, even though it's a few 100 miles away from where I wanted to be.
And obviously, I mean, when you arrived at Amazon, Jeff Bezos was in the process of handing over to Andy Jassy.
Yeah.
What are the long timers, the old hands at Amazon say about the business? How has it changed culturally?
Yeah, well, I mean, the change, I guess, when you move from a founder leader through to a leader like Andy, who has actually been there an extremely long time. I mean, most of Amazon's life. I may be misquoting him, but certainly over 20, 25 years, Andy's been with the company and in fact started up Amazon Web Services. That was his brainchild. I think we've seen a change from, the number of projects that we're looking at and the number of areas that we could be looking at to innovate in, and narrowed those to the big bets that we want to make. So we're putting more resources behind bigger, but probably fewer bets that we were previously. So I think Andy's done a job of really focusing the business on the things that matter. And when you look at some of those big innovations that are coming up that we've taken as a team, the bets on, you've got things like Project Kuiper, which is our satellite broadband service, which will be providing broadband to the underserved parts of the world. You've got our drones delivery service, which in fact, we just announced a few months ago that Darlington is going to be the home of our kind of drones R&D. One of the most technologically advanced places on the planet right now, Darlington, because of that. So, there's some really big innovative bets that we've made under Andy's leadership that I think will take the company really well into the future.
Obviously, as you say, he came from the AWS side of the business. Does he have much of a job to do internally to sort of convince you on the retail side that he loves you just as much?
Not at all. I mean, Andy is an astonishing leader and CEO, and he is looking across the broad range of the business and making some really, really great decisions with some of the big leaders who lead those parts of our business. So I think, he looks well beyond the AWS world, and he's been the CEO now for 4 years. So really is established within the business as the CEO. And, I think we've got a very bright future moving forward with Andy. So it's great.
And where next, really, for Amazon? What's the
What,
big
beyond
project?
space?
Beyond the universe. What next?
Well, there's plenty of things that are happening behind the scenes. There's plenty of runway for Amazon still. We have this phrase in the business that it's always day one, and that really means thinking about that startup culture, making sure you're challenging yourself, not getting too comfortable. And there are plenty of projects that are coming down the pipe, which will, I think, excite people and intrigue people.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say, Stu, just from speaking to you about how we see it as so established in big tech, whereas perhaps the culture inside is still very much, no, we've still got to make it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's one of the most humble cultures that I've worked in, where people take things extremely seriously, are looking at their work and being very self-critical and being vocal about that as well. So I think that's another thing that the leadership principles, when we hire people in, you don't really get the people who are the big IAMs coming into Amazon. You get people who are, I have to say, high performers, but very, very self-critical. So that helps retain that startup culture, because we're a big company, and trying to be ultimately the world's biggest startup is challenging. But that's what we're doing, and I think that's what we're being relatively successful in at the moment in a number of different sectors.
What about AI in particular? I mean, obviously, Microsoft have got their tie-up with OpenAI. Google have bought DeepMind. Is Amazon going to have to go out and buy something ultimately, or is...
Well, I think we're in a great position at the moment. I mean, the AI, it's funny, when you think about AI, I assumed in my lifetime that the internet was going to be the big technological shift. But I think AI is going to dwarf the impact that the internet had. How? No one's quite sure. I think Amazon is in an exceptional place to be making sure that its customers, its employees, the companies that we work with are going to be able to use AI in ways that will transform their businesses. Again, what that actually looks like 3 to 5 years down the line, I think many people are still trying to work out exactly how that shapes things and changes things. But what we do know is it's going to change things, and it's going to shape things. And I think that on every part of our lives, from a social perspective, from an employment perspective, and I think from a PR agency perspective, PR agencies are going to have to massively rethink what offer they are providing their clients. And it's probably going to be much more about strategic counsel than the arms and legs work that often gets done now. And then you think, well, then what does that mean for junior people coming through? That's a big question, because then how do you become a strategic advisor if you haven't done the hard yards?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of unanswered questions at the moment around how AI is going to impact us, but we do know that it's going to have an impact. And I think those companies and individuals who embrace it will be highly successful, and those who resist it will struggle. I think that's the same for the internet, and it's the same as we were talking earlier about e-commerce. Those retailers that embrace AI in the same way as people who embraced e-commerce will succeed.
I mean, how deeply embedded is AI in what Amazon does at present? Because I mean, I assume, even sort of as a user 25 years ago, there'd be recommendations popping up for
Absolutely.
you. Customers like you also bought this. I mean,
if you look at right now on the Amazon site, we've got a tool. We've got an assistant called Rufus, that will help you find what you need on the site. So that's an AI-driven, consumer-focused kind of support. It's almost like having your own PA who can help you, navigate the Amazon site and get what you want. So that's one example of how we're already thinking about supporting our customers there, but also with Alexa. So the new generation of Alexa, which is called Alexa Plus, which has just been launched in the US, that's quite an incredible service. So you don't anymore have to say, Alexa, play this. You could say, Alexa, can you help me find out a little bit more about, the shopping that we're going to need next week? Can you help me? And then Alexa will have a conversation with you. So it's a very different Alexa experience, and that's coming.
When's it coming to
that's a
UK, the rest of the world?
That's a great question. It was launched in the US a few months back, but I would imagine it'll be hot on the heels internationally very soon.
My kids will probably tell me when it's
exactly.
They'll find out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alexa, Rufus, have all these things got to have 5 letters in their names?
I believe that some of the naming for products and certainly projects at Amazon are named after people's dogs. So I'm imagining Rufus was someone's dog, but I'll have to find out and get back to you on that.
That's brilliant.
That is a brilliant note on which to end it, Stu. And we've had a fantastic and fascinating discussion. But I do have one more question for you, which is on Behind the Narrative. We like to ask our guests one question, which is, tell us something that no one else knows.
About the world? About me?
Anything
about
you would
Amazon?
like, about you, about Amazon, something that you feel that you haven't really shared before.
Okay, folks. Right. So I've written a musical. I'll make it all about me. I've written a musical. It's about Soho in the 1960s. I have written all the songs, the script, and it is getting rejected by some of the finest agents in London right now as we speak. But yes, I've written a musical.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Soho in the 60s was quite a rough old place.
It was, yeah. It's quite a tasty musical.
Yeah.
And have you written the music and the lyrics for that?
Yes, it's all recorded and it's all done and ready to go.
Sex, drugs and rock and roll.
Well, yeah, all that. It's called Soho.
Well, the thing is,
jazz hands.
I know that's how you also like to relax, isn't it? With music, you've got a band at home and things like that. So that's clearly in your blood.
Indeed.
Maybe that's how you counter the culture at Amazon. You have your little switch off with your music.
I think it's
and your
really
family.
important that everyone has something outside of work that they can focus on and truly relax. And for me, that's music. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Stu, for joining
pleasure.
us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Tom Ham.
So that's a wrap for this episode of Behind the Narrative.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation and discovered something new about the people and ideas driving business behind the scenes.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's equally curious about the hidden stories of the business world. And you can also find us on LinkedIn at H Advisors.
And if you have any feedback or questions, do let us know. See you again soon.